All right, kiddies, young adults. Subject of today is influencers or ambassadors, so to speak. It's just going to be questions, every YouTuber, they can do whatever they want with their channel, however they want to do it. Who am I to judge? Me as a viewer, it's like I choose to watch them, not watch them, or tolerate, not tolerate, knowing certain things. But, the question would be, like, let's start with the theme park. Because, this kind of stretches more than theme park. Because I'll watch, other people do theme park reviews with like food or what's going on, updates or whatever. Or like, I look at camera reviews and stuff like that. And there's also a problem on that front as well. So it kind of spans out a little bit on YouTube. But let's say like theme parks, you get your big OG, YouTubers going to the theme parks, and they're telling you how, like let's say Boysenberry Festival at Knott's, and they start talking about, the aspect of Knott's, what they think it is. And I think the funniest part is, the boysenberry is a combination of a blackberry, a raspberry, and it was said a blueberry. And I just shook my head. I go, sorry, it's a loganberry. But anyway, I digress. It's just the fact you get these people go there, they're looking like they're having fun, and then they're reviewing the food. And usually they're supposed to like disclose, like, if they were invited there and if they were given any of the tasting cards. But sometimes they don't do that. They just give you the illusion that they purchased their passes, they purchased the tasting cards. Again, like I said, each YouTuber can do whatever they want. But if you're looking for honesty and integrity and you want your audience to believe you, you'd kind of be upfront about it. Now, my question to you guys is it okay for, let's say I get invited and I get, a free pass, I get tasting cards for whatever festival's coming up, and then I'm reviewing them, giving you, quote unquote, my honest opinion about it. Now, would you tend to believe me if I disclose, hey, Knott's Berry Farm gave me these 3 tasting cards and blah, blah, blah? Would you tend to believe what I had to say, or would you call me out and said I was fake? That, how can everything taste so good when it may or may not? Is your opinion true? Is it not? Those are the questions that I put out there, because, there could be an influence, let's say by Knott's or Disney or Universal, when they do these events and they invite, the influencers or their ambassadors over to give, quote unquote, their honest opinions. But can we believe that they really are, or they really aren't? I mean, that's debatable. I mean, that people are out there having fun, that they're trying the food, that there are times when they don't like the food and they tell you, or the drink or whatever. But I mean, is it when you're given something for free, do you feel like there's an obligation to give them a little bit higher marks than what you actually thought it would be? How do you believe that? I mean, I could throw out all these all day and it just kind of like make you think, do I actually believe this person? Do I not? I don't know. I mean, there's like one that I watched that I tend to believe, and he's always upfront about it, that he was invited over by Knott's Berry Farm and they were given tasting cards, and him and his friends go out and try out the food, and then they give their honest opinion, which I tend to believe that he does give his honest opinion. I'm talking about Theme Park Obsession with Dylan. So I'll watch him every once in a while, and I kind of tend to believe what he says, and I know he gets invited over there. I know they get the free tasting cards and stuff like that, but he does go there to give updates, and he does go there sometimes to buy the food and try different things, on his own. So, in my opinion, I tend to believe what he says there, or I take his opinion, with a grain of salt, and I go and I try, and if our palates like match up, then I would tend to believe what he was saying. But there are some out there that are just out there for the free stuff, and then they act like they enjoy everything and pretend and stuff like that. So, is that kind of stuff all right with you guys, or would you prefer, like, if there was no influence, there was no ambassadors, and there was no, handing out the free passes or the free tasting cards or something like that, and then you sat and you watch them sit down there and, they pay with their own money to tell you how this food tastes? I mean, would you rather have that, and would you tend to believe what they'd say? I don't know. And the same thing falls into the camera group, whereas, you have these influencers who are so-called pro, YouTubers using cameras, pro gear. They get invited out, let's say, like by Sony, Nikon, Panasonic. I haven't seen anything by Canon, but they do get loaner cameras to try them out, test them out. And, they would say, I'm not being paid by this company. I've been loaned this camera so I could try it out and give you my opinion about it. They have no influence on what I say, and, they have no say in, how I do my video, before I post it. And then you kind of go along and you wonder if you believe anything that they say. Now, one of the things that started this great debacle was a Sony S9 camera. Most of all the influencers just basically like went gaga over this thing, said it was like the best thing since sliced bread. And they had a lot of fun with the camera. But, they say you got to get this camera. It runs $1,500, but you don't get this. You don't get a hot shoe. You get a cold shoe. You don't get a viewfinder. You have to look at a screen to take your shot, and there's no mechanical shutter. And it's almost the same as its big brother, the Panasonic S5 2X, except it's a little trimmed down, even though, the difference is... Well, actually, it was being compared to the Panasonic S5 II, and the difference between the amounts was probably about $200. Now, if you pay $200, you get a bigger camera, but you get more things with it. Now, that was a thing, they're saying, oh, this camera's great, it's a lot of fun, you ought to buy it because it has this, but... your audience, your viewers were saying, yeah, but for $200 more, I can get a bigger camera that has this, and this that they took out for a smaller camera, and it doesn't overheat like the smaller camera does, and I don't have, recording limits like the smaller camera does, and it just became a big debacle. And now those YouTubers were being called shills, the nicknames are shill tubers and stuff like that. So it just became a big thing, and it became a big era of who do you believe? Like a lot of people stopped believing these camera gurus in anything that they said. And but to me, I'm trying to get the story straight here, but to me, the biggest thing was, your audience had a concern. How can you say this is a great camera when it lacks this and this, when I could just pay $200 more to get a bigger camera that has more? And you're wanting me to buy this little camera for $200 less that has less in it. and then you're saying this is the greatest thing since sliced bread, you know. And what was happening was these influencers were yelling back at their viewers and saying, well, then if this camera's not for you, then don't buy it. Go buy the bigger camera. You know, all I'm saying is I had fun with this, blah, blah, blah. They go, yeah, you could say that because you never paid the $1,500 for that camera. It was given to you, and you get to keep it as long as you want. And when you don't want to keep it anymore, you have to return it back to Panasonic. And that was the big argument, and they weren't getting it. It's not the fact that, you know, what you're saying. It's the fact that people were trying to tell you, hey, you know, if I spend $200 more, I get more bang for my buck than it would with this camera. That even though I'm saving $200, I'm getting a lot less. And the influencers weren't getting it compared to what their viewers. There was no connection between the viewer and the YouTuber and what they were trying to say to each other. So basically everybody was butting heads and fighting, and then there was name calling. That's what I saw. It wasn't a problem with the camera or the product or what the company did. It was just the fact that, you know, you've got these people say you got to get this camera, and you got people over here says, yeah, but you're asking me to spend all this money on a camera where I could spend $200 more to get more than I would with a camera that I saved $200 to get way less. And you're saying I need to buy this small camera because why? And that was the whole thing. So when you go back to influencers or ambassadors to the theme parks, you are counting on that person to show you a way to have fun, try to get the best bang for your buck, the value out of your trip, because maybe it's going to be a one-time thing. You go and you don't have a season pass, you're just buying your regular day tickets, and you want to make the best of your day. And then the food to try, you know, whether it was really good or not. But when you're given stuff for free because you're going to say good stuff about what's going on at that theme park, it kind of gets in your head, you know, do I believe that? Or are they just basically saying that so they can get free stuff for the next event? You know, that's the thing, you know, what do you believe? So I would say, just if you're going to watch these people on YouTube, you know, just go in with an open mind, but just kind of question, is it really that good? Is it that? But the great option is you could see other people's videos that do the same thing, that review the camera, or that they review the food, that they go to the theme parks and stuff like that. Just watch the different videos and then judge for yourself. Don't count on, you know, your favorite people to go, because they're not getting the same experience that you're going to get. You know, it's like the difference, like when I got the Reuben taco, I didn't bitch about it because basically I got it on the meal plan. Now, if I paid for it, which some people would, you wouldn't have known what you're going to get. Were you going to get the same thing that I got, which wasn't even what they were advertising? Or were you going to get something that you'd actually get, but then it didn't really taste good? You know what I'm saying? You need to watch several videos and make a judgment for yourself. And this is what I'm saying. You know, don't rely on just one, maybe two. Maybe you want to go to 5 videos and watch to see if everybody's having the same experience. Because I know each time that I go, either I'm going to have a really good experience or I'm going to have a bad one. And, you know, I for the Peanuts Festival, for the Peanuts Celebration at Knott's, that was terrible. You know, nothing went right. Everything was going wrong. And I did 2 trips on that one before I just said, I'm not going back, because, you know, I'm not having good experiences each time I go. And that's the thing I wanted to convey, is just like, you know, you need to get your game up, or people aren't going to show up for the next festival. Now, Boysenberry Festival so far has been spot on so far. And though I'll agree or disagree with some of the choices, I have to remember my palate's not the same as theirs. They may like it, but maybe I didn't. And I will watch several videos, and then sometimes if I get people that say something like they'll like an item more times out of like 10, like 7 times out of 10, if I see that, then maybe I might go back and try it. Maybe I just had a bad experience that one day. But you got to remember, I will review something that's set in front of me. But anyway, I'm getting off subject, and the practice of this is for me to be a good storyteller and to stay on subject. But I have to say, and the question is, would you continue to believe these people who have been quote unquote influenced by a major company or by a theme park to come in to give your opinion, or they come in and give their opinion about something, and then when you go, do you feel you'll have the same experience if you did the exact same thing and follow the exact same? Maybe I should do a video like that where I wait until one of the big OGs goes and just do the exact same thing that they did and see if I have the same experience. I ought to test that out. And, there's going to be a lot of variables on that, because sometimes you may not get the same experience, but at a theme park, you should get almost the same exact experience. There should be just little intricacies that might be different. And maybe that might be a good video to do. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. What you think of some of these influencers, whether you're going to stick with them because you just like how they do their stuff and they're entertaining, or if you're actually going to go ahead and take them on their word to try to have a good time at the theme park, or you're going to actually purchase that camera based on their opinion, and then whether or not you like that camera. I will let you know. I do have the Panasonic S5 II, and I do have the Panasonic S9, and let me tell you, once you get the focusing down, they are incredible cameras. I really love the S9 because it's small, and it really like packs a punch as far as features for the price, especially now. On Amazon, they have a sale going on where you can get the S9 camera from Panasonic plus a lens, the 20-60, and it's about $1,300. I mean, for a full frame camera with open gate, I'll explain open gate later in another video, that has great low light capabilities. I mean, the best one I use, the best one, if you want to watch it to see how that particular camera worked in low light in different situations. Now, the problem I had was I didn't have the in-body stabilization set right, so I had a little bit of like a tapestry wave when I walked around the camera. But I used the same lens, the same setup that I just mentioned, which was the S9 and the 20-60 lens, and I went from bright situations to very dark, and that camera handled very well. I did have a lot of grain, but when you actually see it moving, you really didn't notice it too much unless you pause the frame, and then you could see all the grain everywhere. But when it's moving, you can't really see it, and it's an acceptable footage. And I didn't even have that fast of a lens. It was like a 3.5 aperture, whereas the fastest one on that one should be a 1.8, and it would have let in more light and it would have been a lot cleaner image. But even though there was a debacle about that particular camera, the S9, it's a great camera for the price that you get, and it does a lot of things. And it's sort of like the social media dream type camera, in my opinion. All right, guys. Well, I pretty much talked myself out of the subject, so I'm gonna. I wandered off on it. I apologize for that, but there's just so much to say on this subject that I really just needed to get out. But thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and maybe have a couple questions in your head about who to believe and who to not believe, and I think that would help with kind of making a decision or a judgment on your own, and just kind of pick and choose what's important to you. But yeah, I tend to not watch those that want to either argue with the audience, or they want to just flat out just be fake, lie, just so they can get free stuff. And if that's cool with you, then that's cool with you, as long as you know the difference. But to me, it's just, nah. I prefer the honest and integrity type of videos that are out there. So anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. I love you all, and I hope you have a great night. Good night, guys.